Hi, it's January 2022, which means it is time for my December 2021 wrap-up. I thought I had read 6 books-ish in December, and I was just wandering around my flat picking them up and was realising I read 10. I thought this was going to be a quick and easy wrap-up. It's not going to be, because I read 10 books. I don't know how this happened. So, I have 10 books. Quite mixed books, to be honest. 2 I really disliked. 1 I disliked to start with, and then it got a little tiny bit better, and the rest are all pretty decent, so let's get into it. Also, I'm not going to be throwing the books at myself anymore because it ended up driving me slowly mad because I just had to film that so many times when I would throw the books at myself because I wouldn't always catch it right, or like I would whack myself with it and it would just take so long. So I'm just going to pick the book up. I'm sorry if that doesn't make it quite as exciting, but I'm just going to pick it up. So the first book I picked up is Rachel Smythe's Lore Olympus. This is a graphic novel. This is the Illumicrate edition. It's so pretty. It's all about the Greek gods in a modern day world, and it's a Persephone and Hades love story. I really enjoyed it. I love the way the Greek gods were created within this story. I love the way that they were all associated with certain colours as well, each family. Thought that was a really cool feature, and it just made it so much more visual and interesting to look at. And I love the romance within it as well. I cannot wait for volume 2 of this. This is a webtoon, so I think you can get more of this online, but I want to wait for the physical printed edition. I don't know when that's going to be, but very excited for that. So I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I just loved it. I was very impressed. Then Chloe Gong destroyed me with Our Violent Ends. This is the sequel to the duology of These Violent Delights. This book made me cry. I think the older I get, the more common it is for me to be able to cry at books because there's more emotions I've experienced, and when I see those reflected in books, it gets me. Saying that, what happened in this book isn't necessarily something I've experienced, but oh, it just got me. It was fantastic. These books are Romeo and Juliet retellings set in 1920s Shanghai, and it's just fantastic. The romance is brilliant. There's multiple different stems of this going on, and just the whole politics of it as well is really interesting. It keeps you hooked. It's just brilliant, and it completely ripped me apart. So well done, Chloe Gong. There's no surprise that this one also got 5 out of 5 stars. Then I moved on to some Christmassy books. So first I started with A Boy Called Christmas by Matt Haig. It feels like ages ago I was reading this now, because once we put our Christmas tree up at my family home, we watched the film because I just finished the book. That feels like ages ago to me, even though it really shouldn't, because it was only a couple of weeks ago. But this is a very cute origin story for Father Christmas, and I just thought it was lovely. Matt Haig's writing style is whimsical and brilliant, kind of reminds me of Neil Gaiman in some aspects. The film for this was really lovely too, a little bit different to the book, but it still kind of got to the same conclusion. And I just really enjoyed it. It was a nice Christmassy, easy read with a couple of really lovely illustrations in there as well. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Then another Christmassy book, I read Stay Another Day by Juno Dawson. I adored Wonderland by Juno Dawson, so I had very high expectations for this one, and it did not disappoint. This follows 3 different siblings over the Christmas break, and they each have their own things going on, and it kind of amalgamates into one big drama in the middle of the book that basically just explodes, and a lot of stuff happens. I just thought it was really good fun at the same time as being very poignant and important with some of the things it was talking about, and at the same time as having some nice wholesome moments put through it as well. Juno Dawson always does such a fantastic job of talking about so many important issues. This book talks about mental health, it talks about eating disorders, it talks about sibling relationships, it talks about romance and heartache at a younger age, and I just think it had so many things in it that were really, really important. So this one was really, really good. And it is a Christmassy read as well, I should mention. It's obviously set over the Christmas period with the children all being, well, not, they're not children anymore, teenagers, young adults, all being home for Christmas. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Oh, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, the worst book I read last month, The Christmas Murder Game by Alexandra Benedict. This promised to be one of the best Christmassy thrillers of 2021 when I bought it. That was the tagline. This was so bad. It follows our main character who is called back to her family or childhood home to take part in a game to win the deed to the house, except it ends up being a murder game and people start dying. It felt like this had every single Christmas mystery trope crammed into it. The writing was laughably bad, but at the same time it was fun. Like, I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. I gave it 2 stars because it was just so poorly written, and the way it just felt like everything was crammed in there for the sake of it was quite disappointing. But it did offer an escapist element to it. I'm very torn with this one. It just felt really predictable, very much tropey, and there wasn't anything I took from it that I hadn't taken from anything else that would be similar, but maybe that's just because this came at a point where we've seen this storyline done a lot of times. But yeah, it was genuinely not the best, and also the main character was just a total pushover and completely needed saving all the time, and I just couldn't bear that female victim complex. So yeah, 2 stars. Then I read The Christmas Escape by Sarah Morgan. This is an ARC the publisher sent through. To be honest, this one was not great either. This is a Christmas romance, except there's barely any Christmas in it apart from the fact that it is set in Lapland and there is that kind of build up to Christmas, but it didn't really feel like it was that Christmassy. I don't often pick up pure romances, and the reason I did with this one is because I thought it would be festive, but it really wasn't. It was enemies to lovers on one hand, and then there was another kind of fixing marriage romance going on, but the enemies to lovers one just left me feeling quite frustrated because I thought the reason they were enemies was just ridiculous and the whole thing felt very petty. So it irritated me, but at the same time it was easy listening. I did this as an audiobook halfway through because I just couldn't keep physically reading it anymore. The chapters were like 50 pages at times, which is just too long for a contemporary romance. And yeah, I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I don't know how it didn't come out as a 2, but here we are. So after those shit books, I wanted to read something better. So I went for Little Women, which is chunky. This is by Louisa May Alcott, and I am so pleased I have finally read this. I kind of considered this a Christmassy book because it starts with Christmas Day, so it kind of got me into the festive spirit in that sense, but this is so much more than that. It's very wholesome, it's very feminist. There is a great moral story running throughout it, multiple different moral stories. It follows the 4 sisters, 4 March sisters, as they go from childhood to young adulthood, and adulthood for some of them, and the journeys they go on and how different they all are. And I just thought it was fantastic. It was just brilliant the way it was done, and I just absolutely loved all the characters, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm really glad I read it, and I wish I read it sooner. Then I read Laura Wood's wintry book, A Snowfall of Silver. This one I have been waiting to read, and I was so excited to get to it. I actually forgot to put this on my December TBR, which was pretty stupid because I knew I really wanted to read it, but this follows one of the characters from A Sky Painted Gold as she tries to make it as an actress. This is very much about following your dreams and finding out what those dreams are, and also being okay to change that kind of path that you take and realise what you actually want to do. And I think it was incredibly powerful because whilst it was a romance, at the heart I think it really was about finding out who you are, and I think that is something that everyone can relate to that has been through that part of their lives. And I just thought it was brilliant, and it just felt really emotional. And Laura Wood is fantastic at creating these relatable storylines that, yes, are romances, but they're so much more than that. They always feel very feminist as well, which I really enjoy. So I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars, which is no surprise. Second to last for the year, I read Starve Acre by Andrew Michael Hurley. This is one my mum picked me up for Christmas, and I read it pretty quickly because it was just very gripping. It is a folklore horror, follows a couple who are grieving the loss of their 5-year-old son who died very suddenly. They're each grieving in very different ways, but this brings in elements of the supernatural, brings in kind of occult themes to it as well, and generally is quite creepy and dark and definitely mysterious and has the kind of foreboding gloom sense throughout, but is also beautifully written, very seasonally themed, and just made me feel like I was fully immersed in the story. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I think it was a great pick from my mum. She's so good at picking something that I would have never necessarily picked up myself, and it pushes my reading a bit. So I'm glad she picked this one up because I ended up really enjoying it. Did I say I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars? I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Lastly, I wish I'd have ended the year on a bit of a better book. Oh, that was like a tongue twister, bit of a better book. Anyway, it was The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. I actually thought this was Lucy Foley's first book, but I think this is just her first thriller book. I read The Guest List last year and really enjoyed that. Oh, the year before last now. Oh. I read that kind of a year ago before reading this one, and definitely enjoyed that, but this plot felt very similar to The Guest List. Obviously this came first. The Guest List was better. This is an isolated thriller following a group of friends who go off to, I think, is it Scotland? Yeah, Scottish wilderness to welcome in the new year. They've each got their own stereotypes about them, and they like I've got all these problems within the group that we slowly see unravel, and of course somebody is dead and we don't know who it is and we don't know who has killed them, and it's all being shown to us throughout the book. The first 150 pages of this thriller were not very thrilling. It was very slow, very boring, and I nearly DNF'd it. I picked up the audiobook and listened to the whole thing pretty much in one go whilst I was unpacking from Christmas, coming back to my flat, and also taking down my decorations and things, so I kind of managed to get through it on the last day of the year pretty quickly because of the audiobook, but it was boring. I just didn't care about the characters, and I didn't really care about who had been killed. And then I thought once you'd kind of established what journey the murder story was going on, I thought it was quite clear where it was heading, so meh, it let me down. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and I think that was generous. Okay, so that's everything I read in December, all 10 books. I am really excited for the new year and reading goals. I need to create my reading goals and film that video, but very much looking forward to that. It should be a really good year for reading. I have got many books I'm excited for and kind of new approach I want to take with my goals as well. So yeah, it's all feeling good. I hope you enjoyed this December wrap up. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up, comment down below how many books you read in December, and subscribe to see more of my face on your feed. Thank you so much for watching, keep smiling and stay positive.